everyone. Welcome to another episode of our Who HQ Book Club, where this week we are reading Who Was Blackbeard. This is episode 3, and we are starting up with chapter 4, Queen Anne's Revenge. As Blackbeard captured more and more ships, he created a small fleet. A fleet is a group of ships that sail together. However, even his growing fleet did not have enough room to hold all the looted cargo. While sailing near the island of St. Vincent late in 1717, the Revenge and the smaller ships Teach had stolen came upon La Concorde. This was a very large French ship packed with slaves. The slaves had been captured in what is now the country of Benin in Africa. The ship was carrying them to markets in French colonies such as Haiti and Martinique, where they would be sold to plantation owners. To make room for more slaves on board, many of its cannons had been left behind. La Concorde had been at sea for more than 2 months. More than 50 of the 500 slaves had already died on the journey. The crew members of the ship were very sick. Many had scurvy. Only a few were healthy enough to sail the ship or fight off a pirate attack. On November 28, 1717, the lookouts high atop the masts of the Revenge spotted the sails of the slave ship. Blackbeard ordered his helmsman, the sailor steering the ship, to head toward the sails in the distance. The small Revenge was a fast-moving ship, so there was no escape for La Concorde. Okay, I'm going to do a blurb here about the slave trade. When European countries formed colonies in the warmer areas of the New World, the colonists established plantations. These were large farms that raised crops such as rice, sugarcane, tobacco, and cotton. They needed a lot of people to work on those giant farms. They wanted to keep production levels high and costs low. In order to make the most profit from their lands and crops, they did not want to pay people to work on the plantations. Beginning in the 1500s, nations such as Great Britain, the Netherlands, France, Portugal, and Spain captured people along the west coast of Africa. Slave traders loaded them onto ships and took them to the New World colonies. The voyage was awful for the Africans. They had very little room on the boats, often not even enough to stand. They were given almost no food or water, and they were often very sick. Thousands died every year at sea, long before the ships had reached their final destinations. Once the captives arrived in the colonies, they were sold as slaves to work in the fields. Slaves were treated as property and bought and sold like cattle. They had no rights and were often separated from their families. Very slowly, other people began to realize how horrible and unfair slavery was. France ended slavery in its colonies in 1794. Great Britain abolished its slave trade in 1807. Slavery did not end everywhere in the United States until the Civil War was over in 1865. It is uncertain how many people were captured in Africa from the 1500s to the 1800s. Some estimates are as high as 12 million people. So, the Revenge is moving on towards the La Concorde. Soon the Revenge reached the French ship, which was moving slowly through the water. Blackbeard ordered cannons to be loaded and pushed into place at the windows on the side of the ship. As the Revenge moved even closer to La Concorde, he ordered the cannons to fire. All the cannons on one side of the Revenge fired at once, a volley known as a broadside. A dozen iron cannonballs smashed into the Concorde. Huge wooden planks and splinters broke off and flew through the air, killing some of the French sailors. Other balls tore through the ropes that held up the sails, which crashed down to the deck. Without sails to catch wind, the Concorde was unable to move. Blackbeard had captured a major prize. Blackbeard did not free the Africans. Although he allowed a few to join his pirate crew, he gave the rest back to the French captain, who carried them to the island of Martinique to be sold. The pirate crew swarmed over their new ship. Blackbeard took command and renamed it the Queen Anne's Revenge. As the largest ship in his pirate fleet, the Queen Anne's Revenge became Blackbeard's flagship, or lead ship. He and his men rebuilt parts of the ship to make it better for pirating. They removed many of the smaller cabins to make room for more cannons. They changed the sails and rigging to make the ship faster. Then, Blackbeard split up his crew to sail all the ships now under his command. With the addition of his new prize, Captain Blackbeard now controlled as many as 300 men and more than 50 cannons. Chapter 5. The Blockade of Charleston. Blackbeard now controlled one of the largest pirate ships afloat. He gave himself a new title, Commodore, because he felt he now deserved a rank above captain. In the Navy, a Commodore is a person in command of an entire fleet. With his new ships, Blackbeard sailed west to Central America. Off the coast of what is now Belize, he captured the small British ship Adventure and added its 12 guns to his total. Blackbeard sailed along the Central American coast, finding and capturing several other small vessels. At one point, a large British ship called the Protestant Caesar tried to outsail the Queen Anne's Revenge. Blackbeard did not want to give up even one opportunity to seize supplies and treasure, so he chased down the ship. When the frightened crew saw Blackbeard's flag flying above the ship, bearing down on them, they abandoned their ship and quickly rowed ashore. Blackbeard's men emptied the Protestant Caesar and then set fire to it. Safely on shore, the ship's crew joined the growing list of witnesses to Blackbeard's crimes. Just gonna take a quick sip. Okay, now a quick blurb about pirate flags. At sea, flags were the best way to identify a ship. Navy ships flew their country's flag. Pirate ships waited until they neared their prey and then raised a black flag, the European and American sign for pirates. Pirates decorated their black flags in different ways. The most popular symbol was a skull and crossbones, known as the Jolly Roger. Let's see. I'm sure most of you recognize that. Blackbeard's own black flag featured a smiling skeleton holding a spear that pointed at a blood-red heart. I don't know if that's really what it looks like. That's a picture somewhere. I'm not sure if that's really what I'm going to look up Blackbeard's flag for you. Okay. Creating a fierce reputation had been a big part of Blackbeard's plan. By this time, he rarely engaged in battles at sea. Once sailors realized it was Blackbeard who was attacking, they almost always surrendered in fear. Blackbeard himself was growing as bold as his reputation. With each conquest, he seemed to take bigger and bigger risks. In May 1718, Blackbeard did something no pirate had tried before. He blockaded an entire port. He sailed his ships into the harbor entrance of Charleston, then called Charlestown, South Carolina. Charlestown was a large and busy port. The colony of South Carolina shipped rice, indigo, that's a plant that makes blue dye, tobacco, and other crops to England. In just a few days, Blackbeard captured as many as 10 ships trying to enter or leave the harbor. He locked his prisoners in the hold, the cargo deck, of his ship after stealing everything they carried. He emptied the captured ships of all their goods. Once Blackbeard's blockade was in place, no ships dared to leave port. The ship owners worried that the rice would rot on board the ships they carried, as they sat in the harbor. For more than a week, Blackbeard and his fleet captured ship after ship coming into the port. Finally, he sent a message to the city's leaders that he needed medicine for his crew. He threatened to murder his prisoners and send their heads back to the city if they did not meet his demands. In a report, South Carolina Governor Robert Johnson wrote that the pirates appeared in sight of the town, took our pilot boat, and afterwards 8 or 9 sail ships with several of the best inhabitants of this place on board, and then sent me word if I did not immediately send them a chest of medicines, they would put every prisoner to death. This company is commanded by one Teach, alias Blackbeard, who has a ship of 50-odd guns under him, and are in all above 400 men. That was some tough, a little tough to understand. So the governor, Robert Johnson, wrote that the pirates, he could see the pirates from the town, and after the pirates had taken 8 or 9 ships, and the inhabitants of those ships, the pirates sent him word that they needed medicine. And then he said how many men Blackbeard had and how many guns were under him. So, not surprisingly, the city's leaders agreed immediately. Blackbeard sent a prisoner and 2 pirates into Charlestown to collect the medicine. Several days went by, and the pirates, did not return. He sent another group of crewmen to look for them. The search party discovered that the first 2 pirates had gone drinking instead of bringing the medicine back to the ship. Once all the pirates were safely aboard, Blackbeard let the hostages return to Charlestown. He did keep all their money and jewelry and most of their fine clothes. After receiving the medicine, Blackbeard kept his word and left the port of Charlestown. The news of the blockade of Charlestown traveled up and down the coast. Blackbeard had become colonial America's public enemy #1. That means he was the most wanted. The news that he had taken control of one of the busiest ports had reached England. The British government, which owned and controlled the colonies, knew that something had to be done. They began to make plans to bring Blackbeard to justice. All right, so that's where we'll stop. Thank you for watching another episode. I just want to remind everyone to sign up for the summer reading program, because every 20 minutes that you read or listen to me reading, or anyone reading, you can cross off a book or log that 20 minutes, and that helps you earn raffle tickets for more prizes. And you get a book just for signing up this year. All you have to do is sign up and you'll get a free book to keep. Okay, I will see you tomorrow for another episode of Who Was Blackbeard? Bye.